So welcome to the National Building Expert series called Ask the Building Expert. And we put together a whole series of webinars specific to building and construction issues. And it's free, and that's a good thing, right? And the reason why we put together these series is to help building owners, condo associations, property managers, attorneys, contractors, homeowners, and anybody else that we feel needs the information, and we're able to help them. And I basically traveled around the United States and parts of the world looking at buildings and coming up with my own take on different things. And I'm going to share with you today on premises liability, avoid the lawsuits. And that's the title. It should also be avoid the injuries, but let's go right into it and we'll have some fun. So question, what is premises liability? Basically, it's a legal concept where an injury is caused by an unsafe or defective condition on someone's property. And it could be on your own property if you're the person. But the topic today actually is concerning any type of grounds or property or buildings, such as office buildings, apartment buildings, your own house, condo buildings, shopping center, golf courses, theme parks. And theme parks are very interesting. And basically, as I said, any type of property. Now, you guys are lucky because several months ago, I gave this same webinar to the mainland, and it was given to attorneys, contractors, property managers, and insurance agents, and each person actually paid $200 to attend the webinar. So you guys are saving $200 off the bat. So that's a good thing, right? So premises liability, it's a legal concept that typically comes into play in personal injury cases where the injury was caused by some type of unsafe or defective condition on someone's property. Examples, some types of cases are slip and fall, such as snow and ice accidents, inadequate maintenance, and hazardous and defective conditions of certain things. Now, slip and fall or trip and fall cases could be caused by defective stairs or loose hand railing, wet floors, or oily floors, loose carpet, loose extension cords, and a whole other bunch of examples. Also, construction sites that are left open could be a hazard. Cracks in the sidewalk, a pile of leaves that could be slippery. Can you think of any other conditions? Yeah, there's probably more that I didn't mention, but let's talk about the most common lawsuits. And I'm not an attorney, although I do play one on TV with Martin, but we're not on TV, right? So most common premises liability lawsuits are slip and fall, trip and fall, and lack of maintenance. Now, a slip and fall is when somebody slips and they fall down, as opposed to a trip and fall where somebody doesn't slip, but they trip on something like, a stairway or a crack or something like that. And then lack of maintenance is a problem that would result in an accident. Either could be a slip and fall or a trip and fall. And these are the most common types of premises liability lawsuits. If you look at the photo on the left, you can see at a grocery store, there's a whole bunch of um, liquid that spilled. And there's one sign there, and there should be more than one. It should be actually two signs. And then also uh, the photo on the right, you can see uh, concrete. And if you look closer, you see all those holes in the concrete? That's called a salt finish, and that's to prevent a slippery condition. Now, further, if you see the concrete, it's smooth, and that's not a very good condition for a walkway. So there's two types that uh, could be a problem. If you live on the mainland, there's ice and snow that could be hazardous. So be aware. If you're from Hawaii, you don't really need to worry about this unless you're up in Mauna Kea. But then if you're up in Mauna Kea, you're skiing and snow skiing, and if you fall, well, that's your own issue. What else do we have? Okay, let's talk about some slip and fall conditions outside. If you have moss growing on a concrete walkway or sidewalk, it could be very slippery. And also, uh, the middle picture is of a outside lobby, and they have this smooth marble tile. And when it rains, because it's outside, it gets wet. So be aware of that. Also, the photo on the right, there's like these cobblestones where it already, if you didn't have any moss growing on it, it's already kind of hard to walk on because it's not exactly level. Add to the problem with vegetation, and it gets wet, and uh, algae growth, and it gets slippery. So these conditions are not conducive to being safe. Look at some other things on a stairway. If you look at the image on the left, you can see tiles on a stairs that are cracked or broken off, and plants are growing on it. It's obvious that there was no maintenance. And the other picture shows stairs, and if you look closely to the bottom left, you see how so worn down it is, and it becomes uneven. And that's not a good condition either, because now you don't have the same elevation of the steps anymore. Here's some more stairs. You got one that's cracked and it needs to be repaired. Obviously, it's just getting worse. Then you have a college campus where you have a whole bunch of stairs, but there's no hand railing. And you're carrying a 50-pound backpack full of books, and it's very easy to fall over or fall backwards if your backpack's too heavy. So the hand railing would definitely help. And by the way, these stairs were designed like that, but the code requires a hand railing, at least if you have 3 steps or more. What else do we have? This is very common, cracks in the sidewalk or lifted areas. And why is it lifted? It could be due to bad soil condition, or most commonly caused by tree roots. So when I look at property and I see lifted sidewalks or walkways, and there's probably a large tree nearby where the roots are actually pushing the pieces of concrete upwards, and it's causing a um, hazardous condition. And then look at the photo on the right. I don't see anything wrong with the stairs, but what's wrong is the guy skateboarded and conked his head. Now, I'll talk about this a little later in the webinar, but did the guy have a right to be skateboarding on this property? And if he didn't have permission and he got injured, wouldn't it be his fault because he didn't get permission and he was on private property or public property that he shouldn't be skateboarding? I mean, obviously, common sense is you don't skateboard on stairs, right? It's very dangerous. Let's talk about exterior buildings, unsafe conditions. Um, there's over 100-year-old steps, and when they built it, it was already not safe and not to code. It does not conform with the current code, and that's why there's a sign that says historic steps used at own risk. And this was taken in Savannah, Georgia. And whenever I travel, I try and look for nice conditions where I can take photos and use it on my presentation. So this is one of them. And then the photo on the right, if you look at it, it's actually metal railing that protects a walkway, and it's so bad where the railing can actually collapse. And as you can see by looking at the cars, we're not on the first floor. We're probably on the second or third floor. Anyway, it's a dangerous condition. So be aware of these kind of situations. Other unsafe conditions would be cobblestone walkway, like I mentioned before. So this is me at the River Street in Savannah, Georgia, and uh, the cobblestone flooring was made years ago. I guess cars used to drive on it, or maybe they had horses or whatever. But it's not safe because it's not flat. Cobblestones, walkway, and roads are not safe because you have all these little divots in it that could have water in it, cause you to slip, or just the fact that it's not smooth, you could kind of not get a solid footing. Okay, so that's an unsafe condition. And let's look at what other unsafe conditions are there. If you look at the photo on the left, you see that wooden fence. Okay, now the problem here is that that fence was too short. It should be extended all the way to basically uh, cover the back. Now, this is a side yard of a house in Pacific Northwest in Oregon, and there's a deep gully. It doesn't look like a gully, but there is one, and that's why the fencing should extend throughout the whole side yard, as a little kid could actually fall down the gully and then need to be rescued. Okay, and then uh, you have a swimming pool, and if you take a look at the gate latch is so corroded that the building code requires that the gate to a swimming pool be self-closing and latching. And as you can see, this thing is ready to fall apart. Okay. Let's talk about interior of buildings, hazardous conditions. There's a sign here that says, danger, women shopping. Now, this is a sign inside a shopping center, and I thought it was pretty funny. So get out of the way, women are shopping. Hey, here's some interesting things that you probably didn't consider. This is actually a concierge room in a hotel. And if you look at the window, okay, it opens too far, right? And if you look at that wall from the floor to the where your window frame starts, that is too low. So question, if there was a kid standing by this window, an open window, do you think the kid could fall out? The answer is yes, possibly. So therefore, that window opening is too big. Okay, so there's a code requirement that there's a height of the wall and how big the window can open. Okay, if it's that low. So that's another hazardous condition. This is not slip and fall, but I'm just bringing it up. The photo on the right shows a fluorescent light fixture, and if you look closely, you see the brown stain there. That's actually water. So this is a penthouse unit, and it had a roof leak, and um, thankfully, water was dripping down into that light fixture cover, so it didn't spill on your carpet. Okay, but The other downside is water was actually going into the electrical box and shorting out the wiring. So that stuff. So some more hazardous conditions. If you look at the walls, sometimes you have water coming in through your exterior of your building, and you have mold growing. And if you look at the photo on the right, you see it's pretty obvious you have some black mold there, which is, pretty much hazardous. Now, let's talk about property owners' standard of care. But before we get into that, there's certain categories of people. It's like a tiered system of liability. So there's invitees, licensees, and trespassers. So invitees are people who are allowed or invited into property, into a building, such as the building owners, tenants, employees, invited guests. So let's say you have a office building. The people who work in the building would be tenants or the building owners, management, or employees or guests that are invited. And there's a standard of care that the property owner would give to these people. Also, contractors or vendors. Okay, now, there's licensees who are salespeople and they were not invited, but they're coming to visit some tenant in the office selling office equipment or something like that. And, and that's acceptable. And then you have the trespasser who is not invited and who is a trespasser. So if somebody gets injured on the property and they're a invited guest or a licensee, the property owner's standard of care is different. It's also different for a trespasser. So if somebody comes to the property, like the skateboard guy, and he's skateboarding, he gets hurt, comes his head, and he tries to sue the owner, right? The insurance company is going to defend the owner, saying that person got hurt, yes, but he didn't have permission to be here. So there's a difference in the hierarchy of also liability. Now let's talk about who the responsible parties are if somebody gets injured. Now, the owner is responsible, right? So, who else would be responsible? Well, um, you have the owner, you have the property manager, you have tenants of the building that could be responsible. You see the photo of the guy in black. He's a security guard. Would he be responsible for unsafe conditions? Well, here's the deal. You you have to show negligence if you're an injured party. And what that means is that you have to prove that the property owner knew or should have reasonably known that the premises were in an unsafe condition. And the owner or manager still failed to take proper steps to mitigate the problem. In other words, if the owner um, sees cracks in the sidewalk and did nothing to fix it and somebody tripped, the owner would be responsible. Okay? So even if he didn't see the crack, okay, the issue is should he have known that the crack was there? Okay, so it becomes contentious sometimes because the owner could say, "Well, I didn't see the crack. I didn't know it was there." But uh, the attorney for the injured party will say, "But you should have known that it was there. How should you have known? Where's your maintenance and inspection program for your building?" Okay, so uh, the property owner of the or the management company has a duty or standard of care to keep the premises free of hazards to protect the health and safety from everyone, not only people who work in the building or visit the building. I would say even from trespassers, okay, to a certain degree. So be aware that Liability is determined by the laws and procedures of the state in which the injury occurred in. Each state has a little different type of law, and it's not all the same for each state. So therefore, there's a degree of liability which is different for each state. Okay. Who are the responsible parties? If you look at the photo on the left, you can see railing, and you look at the pickets, and they're loose. And this is a condominium. So who's responsible for a condominium? Well, if the railing is part of the building and considered part of the common area, then the the board and the property management company is responsible. If the railing is a unit owner's responsibility, then the unit owner is responsible. So it's good if you live in a condo or you manage a condo building to actually check your condo docs, your governing documents to see who's responsible for it. But the bottom line is it doesn't matter who's responsible. The fact that there's a problem, it needs to be addressed. So if the property manager saw this, the property manager should say, we got to get this fixed. And if the railing belongs to the unit owner, it's incumbent upon the property manager to notify the unit owner and say, you got to fix this. It's a hazard. Okay. The other thing is if you're dealing with commercial property, and commercial property, I'm talking about condominium buildings, office buildings, apartment buildings, shopping centers, all those other things that I mentioned, theme parks like Disneyland, Universal Studios, and a whole bunch of other ones. You have to have a building maintenance and inspection program. And what that means is somebody goes around and inspects the grounds and property and makes a list of things that are hazardous and things need to be corrected. If you choose to have a professional do it, then you can hire a professional company to do that. And probably I would recommend that as well, in addition to your own inspection. The other thing too is that if you have insurance, and hopefully you do, the insurance company is going to conduct their own inspection. And you want to make sure that when the insurance company does their inspection, they don't find so many things wrong, because then it's going to make you as an owner or property manager look bad that you haven't been, cognizant of these things and maintaining these items. Accident prevention tips. Well, here's something. If you look at the photo on the left, it's actually steel structure that's corroding. And, and this structure is probably 40, 50 feet high. So if it's that high, normally people don't look up or don't see it, but that's going to be covered in a proper inspection report, where the inspector has to look everywhere. You look down, you look sideways, you look up, and you look at all the whole property. Because believe it or not, if these things are rusting, this whole uh, frame could come down. And why did I put another photo of the building inspection report? Because this is key to preventing accidents. If you let the inspection go and not perform inspections frequently, the cause is going to be prevalent when there's an accident. Accident prevention tips. Well, if you have a lot of moss and stuff growing on your sidewalks, you want to pressure wash it, right? Clean it all the time. It doesn't matter how many times you have to do it. If it rains a lot, it's rainy season, you got to pressure wash more often. And another accident prevention tip is your maintenance program. Make sure that it's solid and someone reviews it. Don't just make up one and not look at it and review it. Every year it should be reviewed, because if certain things change with the building, then you need to add or remove items in your maintenance program. For instance, if the small trees grew up and now they're big trees and there sheds a lot of leaves, that's added to the maintenance program, that they got to clean the leaves, frequently. Okay, so just be aware of these things. let's talk about case studies. You guys want to hear some interesting lawsuits? Okay, so case studies of actually lawsuits, and I'm going to discuss it right now. And these are actual lawsuits where I served as the lead expert witness. So in other words, I was hired by the attorney that represented the person that got injured and had to prove in court that um, the premises were hazardous and that was the cause of the person that got injured. So the first one is international marketplace, and this was before the new international marketplace. So this didn't happen. The accident didn't happen currently. It happened while the old international marketplace was there. And basically, what happened was there was this open area where it was concrete, and that's where they have their hula shows and things like that. And the person that got injured was walking kind of fast, and they were wearing slippers, and they slipped and got injured, and emergency had to come in, and they had some major injuries. But what happened was the concrete was smooth and there were these divots in it, and it was proven that when it there was a light rain, so when you have water on concrete, yeah, it's slippery, right? So the problem was that why was this person wearing slippers? And no wonder they slipped. Okay, so you would think, hearing all that, well, I don't think they have a case here. Did they? But um, the fact of the matter is that that person was a tourist and they were on vacation. So my statement was that you can't, there's no expectation of a tourist to be wearing steel-toed boots with, solid soles, like they're working in a construction field. They're wearing slippers. That's their normal attire when they're on vacation. Oh, but there was slight rain, so they should have known that the concrete floor was going to be slippery. Oh, okay, maybe, but guess what? If you have a concrete slab, it shouldn't be slippery. So the shopping center should have taken precautions and provided a waterproof coating that had good grip so people don't slip. So the argument was on both sides. And um, the problem here is that when I inspected other areas of the shopping center, they had that waterproofing that was non-skid. They had it, and I took photos of it and I showed them, look, why do you have that here and not over here where the person got injured? And there was no answer, but I came up with the answer. Yeah, because you're going to knock the place down, so you don't want to spend money trying to fix things up. Okay, so that's what happened there. Moving on, if you look at the photo on the right, that's Alamora Shopping Center. And there was a railing accident where one person died and the others seriously injured. And the railing got corroded on the bottom and fell over with the two guys. And the problem here was that it was due to lack of maintenance. Had the property been maintained properly, we wouldn't have had this problem with corroded railing and concrete spalling. Concrete spalling is when water gets into the rebar and the rebar corrodes and now the concrete is cracking. So there was a bunch of problems. But the biggest thing was that the city and county issued a notice of violation. And when you're working on a lawsuit and you can prove that something was not to code or in conformance with the code, already that's a big item that we base our expert opinion on, saying this was not to code, and that's why uh, they had the problem. Okay, so let's move along. What happened here? Do you guys see any image? Okay, here's what happened. My slide slipped and fell out of my PowerPoint presentation. Okay, so that's what happened. That's why there's no slide. It's a slip and fall out of my PowerPoint. Okay, but I want to bring up that uh, a slippery floor test is called floor slip resistant testing, and the scientific term is called a coefficient of friction testing on floor materials and walking surfaces. So, in a situation where someone slips and falls, it's not only looking at the walkway and saying, oh, well, that looks slippery. Well, we actually use technical methods and tests to determine what the coefficient of friction was to determine that, yeah, it was too slippery. Okay. So moving along, here's a hotel in Waikiki, and I was involved in as an expert witness, and it was a slip and fall case, but it happened inside the hotel room. And why why did it happen in the hotel room? Well, the person turned on the shower, and um, the shower actually the drain was clogged, and water went all over the bathroom floor. And the person turned the shower on left to get soap, walked into the bathroom and slipped and then conked her head. And this was due to failure of maintaining the drain piping, which could not be seen. And in the lawsuit, they said, well, how are we supposed to know what the condition is? If, don't blame us because we didn't know how bad the drain pipes were. So how could we be liable if it backed up? I mean, if it backed up, it was like a one-time thing, right? But come to find out after researching records that we requested, it was proven that the owner and manager knew that the pipes were bad and never bothered to get them fixed or replaced. I think I have one more. Okay, remember the dreaded Marco Polo fire? Okay. So this is not really a premises liability, but it's more a personal injury, but worse. If the person got injured because of the fire, they got injured. But if they died because of the fire, that turns into a whole different type of lawsuit, wrongful death type of lawsuit. And um, I was involved in uh, the the legal side of it, but I just wanted to bring it up that um, a situation could cause problems even with a fire, flood, those kind of things could be problems. So basically, in a nutshell, that's what this webinar was all about: premises liability, uh, and protect yourself from lawsuits, and even protect yourself from any injuries. So that concludes the formal part of the presentation. And before I take the questions, if anybody has any, I'd like to mention that we're continually giving these webinars, and we have upcoming in the future webinars on painting, wood repair, windows, almost anything to do with a building. And then uh, we also request that if you have any topics that you want covered in a future webinar, let us know, and we'll be happy to consider that for a future webinar. And here's something else. We want to thank you for attending the webinars, but in December, we're going to give, instead of instructional webinar, Martin and I decided to have uh, basically a party online. So if you sign up for uh, the webinar party, we're going to have some games and prizes, maybe some music, entertainment, sing along, and it'll just be a fun thing. There's going to be uh, interesting prizes that you can win. So, um, by the way, the seating is limited to the first 50 people. So, and instead of paying the $50 admission, we're waiving that admission because, Martin wants to be a nice guy and get in the spirit of things. So, you guys are the first people to know that if you're interested, sign up now because uh, don't ask us later to put you in when our Zoom meeting can't hold more than 50 people. Okay. All right. So let's go into the Q&A. Hopefully you guys do have some questions and we can tackle them. And now's your chance while you have a live expert here. Just ask your questions away. And here's a reminder, you can use the chat feature. You can use the Q&A feature. If you want to ask your question live, click on the raise hand and we'll turn on your microphone and we can talk story. So, Martin, do we have any questions from the audience here?
No, nobody's raised hands or put in a question in the chat yet, but we had some from I guess was the email in, yeah. So I'll ask you those for now, yeah, until people put their questions in, yeah. The first one here is you showed a photo of a security guard. Why would the guard be responsible for a problem on the property?
Hey, Martin, do you hear some background noise on my end?
Yes, I do a little bit, but just in the background.
Oh, okay. I have to apologize. I'm at my home office, and my neighbor has a yard man weeding. Not very conducive, but uh, sorry. Just bear
Right.
with the situation.
Yeah, no problem. At least he's doing the maintenance, huh? So good.
Yeah, I'm gonna go inspect after and see if he cleaned up properly. So anyway, in answer to the question, why is a security guard? Oh, can you ask the question again?
Oh yeah, in the picture you showed the security guard, I guess, at the door, or so the question was why would they be responsible for a hole or for any kind of liability on the if there was a
Okay, I
problem?
got it. So the security guard, or the security guard service is not responsible for the hole in the sidewalk or any kind of condition like that. But in my opinion, they are responsible for noting down the hazard and then bringing it up with their manager. So in other words, and I actually train uh, property managers and security people and all that, and it's the same concept. Whether it's the resident manager, site manager, property manager of a building, okay, they're obligated to inspect and note certain things, hazards, and have it corrected. Likewise, a security guard sees something that's hazardous, they're required to notify their manager and the management company, whoever hired them, and saying, hey, I noticed that when I was walking around, there's a hole on the sidewalk, somebody could trip. We need to get this fixed. So when it's a problem, I point my finger to all these people. And it doesn't matter if the security guy says, well, it's not my job for maintenance. My job is making sure that the doors are locked and there's no intruders and all that. I said, that's only part of your contract. You're always everyone's supposed to be looking. Okay. So not only the security guard, but tenants of the building, people who pay rent, if they see a problem, they're supposed to notify somebody and not ignore it, because that's how accidents happen, where too many people ignore the problem and nobody acknowledges it, and then nobody fixes it. So when I walk around to different places, and I've been to uh, Florida, Orlando, and there was Disney World, Universal Studios, and some other places that I went to. Every single theme park had had safety problems. I took photos of them and I notified people. I said, you know what? I think you guys should get these things fixed, right? So it's not only painting things to make it look nice; it's fixing problem areas. Um, so that's my answer. And we got any other questions?
Yes, we do, and I like that answer. Yeah, everybody's kind of responsible, yeah, for making sure you identify the problems. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Number two question here is, please explain the difference in liability between someone falling on an off-road or state park or nature park, hiking, versus someone falling at a grocery store.
Okay, that's interesting. So you go on a hike at a state park or a nature hike. The expectation is that the ground is not going to be smooth. There may be tree roots in the way. There may be rocks. It may not be as safe as another venue um, if you're not, outside. So it's common knowledge that if you're going on a hike, you have to expect these conditions. Okay, whereas if you're at a grocery store shopping, you don't have any expectation of the ground being not level. There's tree roots growing, or there's rocks that you got to step on or over. So that's the difference. So if someone gets hurt at a state park, that's a little different from somebody getting hurt and slipping at a grocery store. So there's a difference here. And if the state park trail is not maintained, yeah, they have more liability. But if it's maintained and the person still got injured, the expectation would be a little different. Yeah. So that's the difference. So you really gotta look at the actual property and what the property is designed for and designed, for a walking surface. Yeah. And we've been to so many hiking trails, and the fact that it's a hiking trail already tells you that it's not going to be smooth sailing. There's no air conditioning, and you have no expectation of walking on level ground that has no leaves or rocks or holes in it. Yeah, so that's basically the difference.
Thanks, Lance. Makes sense. Get a couple more questions here. The next one is, if someone comes over to my house, climbs up my mango tree, falls and gets hurt, can he still sue me?
Well, the question is, did he get permission or not? Okay, so um, now let me back up. As far as the lawsuit, anybody can sue anybody for anything. It doesn't matter whether that suit is enforceable and a person's going to win. Uh, we don't know, right? So people sue other people for anything, and sometimes they lose, sometimes they win, sometimes there's a settlement, but it's hard to predict. Now, um, the issue is, did the guy get permission to go up on the mango tree? If he did, okay, that's one thing. If he didn't, then that's something else. So the liability issue is still there, although if the guy got permission and fell and got hurt, he can still sue, and then the person's homeowner's insurance would kick in. If the person didn't get insurance and got hurt and sued, the insurance company will still kick in, but then the insurance attorney that's appointed to the case will argue that this person never had permission, and therefore he wasn't entitled to be on the property. So if he got hurt, don't blame the homeowner. And then another issue would come up. Yeah, but there was no sign saying keep out private property. And I mean, it's pretty obvious that when you see the sidewalk and then, the guy's yard, that intruder that didn't get permission knew he was going on private property. But this happens all the time, especially in Hawaii, where people go and pick mango, lychee, breadfruit, avocado and flowers. They go pick plumeria, pukinikini, and people don't get permission a lot of times. And um, there's a difference. I mean, it's in the old days, it's like, yeah, whatever, you want mango, come pick your mango. Now it's a whole different story. So as an owner, um, you got to be very careful. If you want to be nice and you have an abundance of mangoes and you want to give to people, strangers, that's fine. But instead of having that person go pick it and climb your tree and all that, it's probably safer if you have the mangoes picked already and then you just give it to the guy. Okay. I wouldn't let anybody climb your trees because there's a problem of them falling down. If you don't understand the concept, contact your insurance agent and ask them the question. Can I have somebody climb my tree and pick mangoes? What happens if they fall down? Will you guys cover me? And then see what they say. So hopefully that answers the mango question. And by the way, if anybody has mangoes, let us know because we like mangoes. Right, Martin?
Always, always, yeah. Thanks, Lance. Get just one more question here. Interesting one. Can an injured person still sue if the injury was due to an act of God? Let me just add something from my perspective. We're in hurricane season and all that kind of stuff. And if, you get trees and the tree branch gets blown down and say somebody's walking on the sidewalk near your house and the thing fall on them, would that be considered one of those examples?
Okay, so here's an issue. In your insurance policy, there's an act of God exclusion. Like if it's an act of God, then you don't get any coverage. But I'll give you an example. On Ala Moana Boulevard, someone was sitting at a bus stop by Ala Moana Beach Park. And the bus stop has a bench and it has a roof. It's a covering over it. So a person's sitting down and there was a tree and a branch fell from the tree and crashed through the roof and injured the person. That person sued and the city said it was an act of God. Okay, but it really wasn't because when well, not me, but when the attorney looked at the records, they asked, well, when was the last time you had a arborist or a tree person look at the trees and inspect it? Did the branch fell because it were termites or whether it was rotted? And there were heavy winds, right? So the bottom line was, after inspection, it was determined that that wood was rotted around the tree branch, and when the strong winds hit, that's why the tree branch had crashed into the roof. So you would think that act of God, you can't do anything, but the problem was it wasn't act of God, the wind, but had the city maintained the tree and maybe cut off that portion, then there wouldn't have been the accident. So that kind of solves that issue, right? And so it got settled out of court, I think. Now, the city sidewalk, this is interesting. The city sidewalk and that green strip, you don't own that green strip in front of your house, okay? That's city and county, but guess what? You have to maintain it. Okay, so if you have moss and all that growing on your sidewalk, it's good to get it clean, because if somebody trips over that, you're gonna sue the city and the homeowner. Likewise, if your concrete is cracking, you're gonna have somebody gets hurt, you're gonna have a lawsuit, and you're just gonna sue the owner, and then the owner's insurance company will have to defend the claim. Yeah. So even if it's not your fault, you can still get sued, and then just it's a big hassle. So did that answer the question?
Oh, yes, well, it's answered my part of the question. Got to trim the trees, huh?
Yeah, or call the city up and tell them, hey, can you come and trim the trees? It's the city is responsible for trimming the tree, but then they don't come out that often. And the problem is, if you don't like it because it's too much rubbish and you cut it down, the city will fine you. But then when you call to have it trimmed, uh, they don't come out right away, right? So,
Right, right. Yeah, okay. Okay, now good answer. Good answers. Thank you.
okay. So do
Um,
we have anybody in the audience that
no,
still wants
I still don't
questions
see
or what?
last call, yeah, for questions from either in the chat or in, raise hand and we can open up your mic. But yeah, it's all yours then, Lance.
Okay, so once again, we appreciate you attending and hopefully we'll see you at the next webinar upcoming. Uh, don't forget to go to our website, askbuildingexpert.now.site. If you want to watch the replay of previous webinars, you can go to that website. Also, you can email us or call if you have any questions on other topics, or if you have questions on other things, feel free to email, and we're always here to help you. And once again, on behalf of Martin and I, thank you very much, and hope to see you at the next webinar. We're going to sign off now, and that's it for today.